So, welcome back to Today I Am Talking to, and today I'm talking to the incredibly talented
Oh,
comedian, actor, writer extraordinaire, Emily Fury Daly.
woohoo! That's so nice. Thanks for having me. I love it.
Of course, truly so excited to have you here. So, I just like to start off before we dive into all of the excellence that is you, with a fun, silly question.
All right.
And I know you wear a lot of different hats, but in of all the different branches of like artistry you take on, if you could only do one forever, which would you do and why?
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Great question. I I would have to say just performing always. The performer hat, whichever one that is. I yeah, I love doing all of it, all the writing, all the comedy, all the stuff, but I think my favorite thing is like performing my own stuff. Yeah,
Totally. No, that makes a lot of sense because you went to school for performance.
I did. Yes, I went to undergrad for acting in Indiana, and then I went to grad school in California. So it was like 7 years of school. And I've been at you're a theater kid too, right?
Oh, absolutely.
I've been, I've been doing it since I could talk. And yeah, I think I always want to be in front of the in front of the camera on the stage. I love it. I love it.
How was your journey in like how did you start performing? Like where was the place that you just kind of got the bug and you're like, "Oh, I got to be up here in front of these people now."
Yeah. Well, I come from a very artsy family. So my dad he's semi-retired now, but he's been a professional theater actor for like 40 years, something insane. So he's done that his whole life, and he's made his career as a regional theater actor. So he's worked all across the country at Shakespeare festivals, stuff like that. And then my mom also retired, but she's a playwright, actor, all that stuff. So I was like born into it. And I spent like most of my childhood at the theater with them, and watching rehearsals. And my my first love was Shakespeare. It was like what got me into everything, was watching my dad do Shakespeare. And yeah, I mean, it was pretty right away, as soon as I kind of saw what that life was, and just how, I mean, I was like a really shy kid, and a weird kid, and the theater was just like an immediate escape. And yeah, so it's their fault. It's my parents' fault.
It's their fault and we blame them for
And
it.
I'm sorry, mommy and dad. Yes, they did it.
It's really so interesting because I think that like I was talking to somebody earlier today, it's the same thing. Every time I talk to people who are like incredibly creative and incredibly do it themselves, and really the people that I feel like are out there trying to grab every aspect of like an entertainment, like they're like, I can do it all, I got this. Almost every single person I talk to is like, I was incredibly shy.
Yeah, totally,
Like
totally.
was or is like, how do you think that, and I am just fascinated because like like I feel similarly the same way. I'm like, I was a quiet kid, why am I talking to all these people? What's happening? But I'm always very interested in how people logic their way, or like not around it, but how that logic tracks, because societally you wouldn't think it tracks, but actually if you speak to artists it's like, no, that makes a lot of sense. So within your life, how do you think your shyness has led you to where you are?
Oh man. Yeah, I think I think you're right. I think it's super common. Most, like, when you hear interviews with people, are always like, but I'm actually shy. I'm much better now. I'm pretty social now, but I think just as a kid I think there's an element of performing that you're not yourself, right? especially when you're a little kid and you're dressing up and stuff, you're taking on a different persona, and with that comes some confidence. And I think all it probably took for me as a kid was to like put on a hat and do a silly dance one time and have people laugh, and that was like it, because when you're a shy kid, you don't really have that effect on people because you're so insecure. So then suddenly you're getting all of this feedback and attention, and so I think that's a big part of it. And for me, yeah, it was always just like where I could feel my freest was when I was kind of protected by that. Well, I'm performing. This is someone else, or this is a different side of me. I don't know. Yeah, but it's been a lot, it's been like 30 years of getting confidence, and I'm still figuring that out. But yeah.
Totally. And I think and it's interesting talking about having, it's like that's a different person doing that, and you kind of end up marrying the two a long time, where it's like, yeah, you know what, that one, it was fun being that confident for a second, like let me try that when I go to like order food, and it's like you kind of marry them along the way.
Yeah.
But how, now that you have this you do stand-up comedy now, we're kind of speeding through a lot of topics, we're going to dive into them all deeply, I promise. But now you're doing a lot of stand-up comedy, you have this one woman show that you're doing. How do you think you can navigate stand-up, which is a lot more about you and about yourself and a bit more vulnerable? Like, where do you think that fits into the narrative of being like, oh, performance is somebody out here that can do this, and I am here?
Yes, right. I think that it was a long time come. I only started doing stand up I guess it's like 2 or 3 years ago. So it was kind of so I think it took a lot of figuring out who I was, figuring out what my voice was, figuring out, liking myself, all that good stuff. Um and that's kind of when I realized, oh, it's actually sometimes even more fun to just be myself. But I also think that there's, when I'm out on stage doing stand up, it's an elevated version, right? It's an elevated version of yourself. To me, it's like you're at your funniest, you're at your quickest, it's you on your best day. So yeah, I think you got to get right with yourself a little bit before and get that confidence built up. And also just after a while, like, I went to school for so long and I did so much crazy shit and like played so many crazy roles and made an ass of myself so many times, in school. And at a certain point, you're just kind of like, I don't care anymore. I don't care what people think. You just have that kind of, it's just a lot of training and a lot of confidence, I think.
Totally. And also, speaking of your specific voice as a stand-up, I need to tell you, yours is one of my favorites. Like, bar none, I get it stuck in my head because it's just like, oh, you must go shoplifting. Like, I will go back just to listen to that. I hope that's not creepy, and it's like it's
like the best thing to ever hear in my life. That's amazing.
Yay! I'm so glad. But like, how did you, if like, and just to dig myself, like, granted, it's kind of my job, but I went back deeper into your videos, and like, you have clearly grown into this voice that you have, and it's not, and when I say voice, it's not, for those listening, it's not like a character or anything.
Yeah.
It's very much, but it's like you've really managed, like you've really managed to like hone in on it. Was there like a point where you're like, oh, got it? Like, what was that?
Well, it's definitely still being tweaked, and I hope I hope that my voice continues to change and grow and blah blah blah. But I think this is going to be like, I'm putting on my pretentious actor hat. So here we go. Hello, it's coming on. But when I was in grad school, we did a lot of clowning work, which is maybe you've done it yourself, but it's like exactly what it sounds like. You're putting on a red nose, and the whole the whole concept of clowning as in like an art form is that you are connecting back to like your inner child, right? And like who you were as a kid when you were at your freest and funniest and silliest and playing. So I think once I and you it's like a whole it's gonna sound so it's a whole process. When you like start doing clowning, you meet your clown persona, you kind of you create that voice, and it really comes out of like an authentic place because you're trying to connect to your little kid. So I think that's been a big part of finding it, is like, you know, the 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 voice that I've cultivated and what I find funny is stuff I've always found funny as a little, even as a little girl. And so I think as soon as I tapped into that, I was like, oh, this is just like, I can just do what I used to do to make my family laugh around the house, that kind of thing. So yeah, that was definitely clowning was a big aha moment of, okay, yeah, I know that exists somewhere inside me and I just got to like get that out,
Totally. Yeah, and I think it's also so interesting seeing like the emphasis on laughter through all of the acting. And it's so funny, like talking to people, especially people who do comedy, who came from acting backgrounds.
Yeah.
It's always like, oh, comedy, comedy, comedy. But this is going to sound pretentious. Stanislavski. And like there's always like the disclaimer right before it hits.
I don't want to be
But
that
it's true.
guy, but it's true,
But
yeah.
it is true. Like
Yeah.
there is, it really just comes back to like marrying the worlds again, which is such an interesting thing to do. Speaking of, like, you keep mentioning like, oh, I made my family laugh a lot, or making them laugh around the house, or like I loved laughter. But also, and that's what Shakespeare's hilarious. We know these things, pretentious after, but there is more seriousness and depth. And even in like growing up around stage drama and Shakespeare, like there's a lot of like depth and complexity and kind of darkness there. How do you think the humor fit in with like the art you saw your parents doing, or kind of the world that surrounded you?
Yeah. Oh, great question. You're very smart. Well, I think I guess what pops into my head is, just watching my dad, who is a very jovial, very goofy person in life, very kind, very gentle, very funny. And, just watching him be able to take on these roles in Shakespeare. I saw him play Richard III, I saw him play King Lear, I saw him play all these like heavy hitters, like the big dramatic roles. And to watch someone like him, who is at his heart a clown, kind of transform himself, was really amazing. And I think at least my favorite entertainers and comics and actors are people who can do both, who can go to both extremes, can like play in that dark world. I think of like, I don't know, like Kristen Wiig or someone like that, right? Who's like so funny. And then she also has played like these more dramatic, vulnerable roles. And it's that, I think if you can do one, you're probably going to be able to do both, because if you're able to tap into like what makes people laugh, I think you're also able to tap into like what makes them cry. Because it's like the tragedy in comedy, but it's like, I do think that is. And I think that, I think humor is, I mean, this too, but humor is just a way to like, it's a lot of us funny people that we started using that as a survival technique, right? So humor was how we like got out of things, or made people like us, or made unfortunate situations feel better. It's just, I think like comedy and tragedy just kind of go hand in hand in that,
100. I so totally agree.
Yeah.
And I think that you're right about the epic, like it's so cool seeing someone transform from one to the other. And then also, speaking of like doing my job, like I know you've also played King Lear back at a time, and you also were in one of my favorite shows, so I just love to talk to you about it for a second. I'm pretty sure it's behind me right now, but you were in Actually by
Yeah,
Anna Ziegler.
I
Can you
was.
just that is like a heavy hitting show about consent and all these things. It is a beautiful show. Was that before? Were you in that while you had started doing comedy or before?
That was actually before. So that was I went to go do that show at the beginning of COVID. So we got shut down. We didn't get a full run, but we did get like the full thing on its feet and had like a, video recording or whatever. So that was pre the comedy, but it was definitely a big part of me going like, oh, this is really like my sweet spot. Like I think I'm really good at, and I really like, you know, hitting them where, or making them laugh, because that character, she's very funny. She's very effusive, and how you're kind of introduced to her is she's like a storyteller, and if you start the play as, this is like, you've heard this 1,000 times, if you start the play knowing what the ending is going to be, it's going to be a real drag for the 2 hours that the audience are watching you. So I think I learned a lot about how to get the audience on my side and get them to listen to me and laugh with me. So then at the end, because at the end of that play, there's kind of like this big cathartic moment. It feels you've taken the audience on a journey with you all the way there, and you make them laugh, and then boom, hit them where it hurts. So I think that was a big, respectfully. But I think that was a big moment of figuring out, yeah, you can't just go on stage and be like, everything is terrible, because no one's going to listen to you when you want to talk about the important stuff, So yeah, that play is really good. It was awesome. And it like made me realize how much I love intimate shows like that, 2-person shows. And then now I'm like, oh, just one, I'll just be up there by myself. That sounds good. That sounds good. Yeah. And then, King Lear, I played that in grad school. It was awesome. I'm going away this summer to play some Shakespeare roles, which is also fabulous. And yeah, I love it all. I love being able to do all of that.
That's great.
That's a good play for you too, girl. You better have some actually monologues in your back pocket. That's a good,
okay.
Yeah. I don't think I could play 18 anymore. I think I was like, right. I was like, it's like, this is a grown 18-year-old in this show. But yeah, it was really fun.
It's amazing. And I think it's so, I feel like sometimes actors can get said with love and respect to all the actors out there, but there is something, and stop me at any point if I say something that you're like, or just disagree with me here. That'll be fun. I think there are a lot of actors that get very cagey the second they see you trying to do something that's not acting. Like suddenly it's a lot of like, oh, are you acting anymore?
Oh my God. Yes, girl. Yes.
Oh, so interesting that you say. What is your response as somebody who is clearly like, no, you haven't stopped, like in no world have you stopped acting. It's like, no, now I'm acting, writing, comment, like you're doing all the things. So what is your response to that? Or even just kind of the mental gymnastics around being like, no, I'm good. And I am confident in what I'm doing. Thank you.
That's so specific. And I'm like, yeah, that's like, that is real, because people have very good intentions usually, but they want to put you in, they want you to make sense, so like, oh, but yeah, you're doing this, and my response is whatever. I mean, I don't know, like it's impossible to do one thing anymore. That's just like not the world we live in. There are a few very, very lucky individuals who maybe can do that. So that's usually what I say. I say, you know what, that's just, I knew that I wasn't going to be able to make a career just waiting, I just knew that wasn't going to happen, waiting to get cast and stuff. So I say, I'm throwing as much spaghetti on the wall as possible to see what sticks. And yeah, but that is an interesting thing. I had people being like, I thought you quit acting. and now you're just doing stand-up. I was like, you think I could just do like, you can't just do one thing. I would lose my mind, because you're not, you're not with stand-up, especially, you're not getting money for where I'm at least. You're not getting
No.
paid. Yeah, you're not. It's really awesome, but I just think it's important to have as many pots boiling, if it makes you happy and you can withstand that, and I think people don't understand this too, and I don't know how to explain it, but like, it all feeds into each other. Like, it all helps the other thing, so yeah. And those people, I'm just like, sorry you don't get it, but I'm like, I do it all. I do it all.
Doing it all. No, that's that's so great. And then also you were so we went from 2-person show to comedy to doing it all to now, drum roll please, that was anticlimactic, furious.
Furious. Yes. That was a great call.
Thank you so much. It's my services are for rent. So Furious is can you just tell us a little bit about the show, the concept behind it, what it is?
Yes. Well, the elevator pitch is that it's a zany 45 minutes, and it's all about generational female fury. So that's kind of like but the longer story of that is that I've known that I was going to do a one-person show for a long time, because I think a lot of us actors have that as like a, something in the back pocket, like, I should do that. That would be a good thing to do. And then I did someone else's one-person show last summer in Colorado, this play called Crossword Play by this lovely woman named Donna Hoke. And she wrote this play, and I did it, and it was awesome. But I was like, damn, this would be like so fun if I was talking about myself, And so I think that when that happened last summer, I was like, okay, I need to make this happen, because I think that this is the form that I found that works the best for me. It's like solo theater, just me up there doing my thing. So once I decided that was going to happen in the fall of this 2022, I don't know what days or months are, but once I decided that was going to happen, I was like, okay, I'm going to book a space, and then for months in advance. And that was at QED in Astoria. I booked it out like 6 months ahead, and I was like, by 6 months from now, I will have a play, and it'll be called Furious. And so I just had like the ideas, but I knew that if I didn't have a goal, it wouldn't happen, because it's very, I'm sure it's very, very easy to talk yourself out of stuff like that. I've been like, oh, well, that's a lot of work. And does anyone really care about my one-woman show? Because everyone has a one-woman show, and blah, blah, blah. So I knew I had to get it done. And it centers around kind of 3 different things, which is my experience as a kid in special ed. I was in special ed for math as a child. And then my family, the women on my mother's side, the Fury women, they're these very intense Italian women, and then me volunteering at Planned Parenthood. So I took all these like things that have been in my brain and was like, okay, how can we kind of connect all this? And what I found was that it's a lot about like female fury, which is a double meaning because of the name. And then I was like, but I don't want it to just be me going out there and throwing up my feelings for an hour. I want it to be funny. And so it's kind of turned into this pretty meta, like the concept of it is that I'm doing this solo show and I don't have any money. I don't have a budget. So the audience has to help me. And I have a time limit. I can only be up there for a certain amount of time. So everything moves very quickly. And it's kind of become like this, back to the clowning thing, kind of like a clowning meets stand-up meets theater meets all of it. And it's just really fun, and it just kind of allows me to be my wildest, freest self. And it's a work in progress. I'm still figuring out what it is, and like every time I perform it, I'm learning more about it. I'm hoping it's something that can grow, and but yeah, that's it.
That's so cool. So I think the concept, like the idea of being like, okay, booking the space, cool, has to be done by then. Whew, world of set. That makes so much sense. Just being like, okay, well, there better be something because it's
Gotta
due.
do, like, there's people, they're coming, and so gotta put something up.
They will be in attendance.
Yes.
Whether unless I'm improv for an hour, it's gonna
Exactly.
happen.
Boom, exactly.
Was how did you start working on it? Because I think because it sounds like you had these notions or these ideas of things you wanted to touch upon,
Yeah.
but I still like the space between like, okay, 6 months away and like create an entire show where I'm up there alone seems like there is a bit of like a space between, one could say.
Totally. Totally. Well, I think a lot, I mean, I've been writing, I write a lot, so I already had a lot of, and my writing is very unorganized, and it exists in notebooks and on the computer and on my phone and all that. So I didn't have to just like completely, I had things, I had stuff that I talked about in my stand-up that I found I liked and wanted to expand on in longer than a 5-minute club set. So I had that stuff, and I was like, so that already kind of existed. And um and then I've always wanted to, well, like my family is very inspiring to me, so I knew it had to have something to do with my family because they're part of like everything. So the focusing on the women of my family, my mom did like a bunch of random research and was just like inundating me with all this stuff for no reason, just because she wanted to share it with me, and it was nice. And I was like, shit, I have all of this, like this is gold, like I've got to make this into something. So the 6 months was just kind of like getting that all together, and I spent a lot of time like dedicating. I went and wrote at the library in New York here, the big one with the lions, you know what I'm talking about, the big guy. And that was the only place I could focus because I am this crazy. And so I did that. And then I have this amazing husband who is Rob, who is my kind of partner and collaborator in a lot of stuff. And so I said, I'm gonna need you to get eyes on this, because we've worked together on stuff since drama school, so I trust his eye, and I trust what he knows I'm capable of. So I had outside, I wasn't just like alone in my room being like, how am I going to come up with a play? I had people who were collaborating and helping and talking to me about it. So that was really lucky. But it wasn't really ready until the night, like I was really working on that until I walked out there and said, no, here we go. We're going to see what happens. Because that's kind of how I work. I've always been that way. I work better with a deadline and under some pressure. And if I'm not too polished, does that make sense? I kind of got to go out and like jump out of the plane a little bit.
No, that makes absolute perfect sense. Like yeah, no, I very much get it where it's like, no, it just has to happen. And then I'll be like, oh, I get it now.
Yeah,
Which
exactly.
like
Exactly.
and
Yeah.
there are some people who are like, no, wait, I need to understand it before I do it. I'm like, no, I won't understand it until I do it, actually.
Yeah. It's like in the moment workshopping, because I knew that I needed an audience for it, because that's what the play needs. It needs people to be in the room, and I need to like be reacting to what's happening in real time. And you simply cannot plan for that because every audience is different, and sometimes there's crazy shit that you can't control. So it was like trying to find the balance of being prepared, but also feeling loose enough that I could make some like in the moment decisions about stuff.
Totally. And I think that is such a testament to being an actor and a stand-up,
Yeah.
because I think looking at a lot of the acting is so much more not to, like, every actor is gonna like roll over, but like planned. But like, you know what I mean? Like you're like you're supposed to, yes, no, I'm not saying it's like planned, but like you get the same, you hit the same marks every night, like
Yeah,
without question.
of course.
And there is a certain like open to the roomness in stand-up. Like if you start changing the words in Chekhov, they're gonna get mad. But you're
Right.
like, oh, but this audience member was responding to it. Like they wouldn't.
Yeah. Yeah,
Exactly.
totally.
So it's interesting to hear that it's like, no, maintaining that theater side of it while still holding on to that idea that it's like, but like the audience could do something and like I can make this in the moment as well.
Yeah,
It's very cool.
absolutely. I think that's my favorite thing, and I think that that's why, like, just doing stand up was never satisfying and just doing theater was never satisfying. I love both of them, but it's like, how do we get those together? Because yeah, it's so great not having, honestly, being in control, like not having anyone be like, all right, Emily, you did not hit your mark on the, or, oh, you didn't move that chair, or, oh, we're going to put you in this really uncomfortable costume. Like, I have total control over myself and what's happening. And that is just like so liberating.
Yeah. No, that's really amazing. And when it came to writing the show also, how much did you find like when it came to like workshopping different sections, were you able to run stuff at open mics, or was it such a different format that you're like, this doesn't correlate?
Yeah. A little column A, little column B. Yeah. So, there's stuff in my set, in my stand-up set that I do in the show. So definitely some of that translated. But I had to I guess I use the open mics as something different because they are so different. So the open mics to me are just like an opportunity to get as comfortable as possible on the stage, like reacting to things. So that was kind of practice. Does that make sense?
That makes total sense. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, but I think for a while I was obsessing about like how it all connected. And I think I just had to be like, it's all it's all part of it, man.
It's all one thing.
One thing, dude. Yeah.
And then speaking of stuff you do in your stand-up, and you also mentioned is a big part of the show, you volunteer with Planned Parenthood.
Right.
So how did you get involved with, yeah, starting there, how did you start volunteering with Planned Parenthood? What got you started with them?
Yeah. Well, that's a big part of the show because I mean, I got involved because duh. It was just like there was, I started volunteering, I guess this is my second year. So like right mid pandemia, I don't know. And and so I was just feeling very out of control. And then this is something that is talked about in the play, and I'm kind of like honing in on. I really started because I quit drinking around the same time, and I was looking for a way to kind of make myself feel like a better person, you know? And and volunteering felt like something I could do because in a way it's like a performance in itself. You're like putting on the costume, you're going out there, you're standing outside, you're having to deal with the insanity as it happens. And I think I had like, as most things happen, I saw like a friend on Instagram post that she was doing it, and I was like, that looks like someone who's got her life together. Maybe if I start volunteering, I'll have my life together. So like that was definitely a big part of it.
And it worked. No, sorry, I'm kidding.
Now everything's better. I'm a perfect person. But then of course, as you do, I ended up really liking it, and it is just a really nice way to feel like I'm giving back. And I can't give money because I don't have it. And I can't write letters. I'm not smart enough. So I, I think just being out there and being a friendly presence was something that felt like I could really do that and make a difference. And I love it. It's really fun. I've met like some of the best people ever also who do it. And it gives you some purpose, you know?
Totally. And so the working with Planned Parenthood is part of it. And you said you started working there right after you stopped drinking. And I did actually look at one of your it's beautifully written on a shameless promotion for your things, but on your website you have this thing that's like, oh, if you really want to get to know me, read this thing.
Yes.
And so it's this really interesting thing you wrote about how you stopped drinking and you were like, suddenly it felt like everyone was judging me for not drinking now. Can you speak a little bit about that experience?
Oh my God. I mean, yeah, it's anyone who has that, struggles with addiction, goes through that, knows what that feels like. You're just, yeah, you feel, whether they are real or not, you feel eyes on you. You feel like, this is something that now makes me really different. I'm no, you go through the whole, will I be cool and fun ever again? Or yeah, are people judging me? The good part was though, is that I quit during COVID. So like early, like right away before COVID. So, being in lockdown and no one was really judging me because no one could see me and no one cared about me because the world was ending. So that was great. So really, I mean, it's interesting I wrote that and that's how I was feeling to hear that, because I think probably where most of that came from was self-judgment, and that's part of dealing with quitting, is learning how to like turn off those voices, you know.
Totally. And that even that's moving into the comedy, which moves into the one woman show, which is all about like, oh, I'm free and I'm as open as I could possibly be. It's all one web and everything's connected always.
Always, that's what I'm saying. Like, no matter, it's really what I found, like, no matter how different something feels, or like, how is this stupid thing over here going to help me achieve that? It's like, you just never know what you're going to learn and, yeah, discover.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And writing that stuff, that was like, it's very sweet you read it. That was like the first time I was really putting my own work out there, and I was getting really good feedback and reception. And I think that was part of me going to stand up, because I was like, well, people seem to think this is funny and good, but I want to perform it. I want to
Mhm.
be, I want to be doing it.
Totally. I feel like, and also going back, and then we'll talk about Furious again in a second, but it seems like you've always known that you kind of want to be a performer and like a writer, like doing all these like performance style things. And it's interesting because I think a lot of people, or I found that a lot of people I talk to who have creative parents or parents in the arts often don't want to do exactly what their parents are doing because they're like,
Right.
it's your thing. Like, so did you feel that, or did you kind of have the opposite experience?
Yeah, kind of opposite. I was like, I want to do exactly what you're doing. Because my parents have also been, they've always done their own thing. They've written their own work. My dad's written his own plays, my mom's written her own plays. So like, I knew early on that that was something that people could do. Now it's pretty crazy that I plan to do it, because I saw firsthand what a difficult life being an actor is. They're not Hollywood actors. These are stage actors. These are people who have, really like worked their asses off for a really long time, to not a lot of bells and I mean, they get a lot of validation from the people in their communities in the theater world, but it's not a life of luxury by any means. So the fact that I saw that and was like, I'm gonna do that, is pretty crazy. But I think that there's something to using all the things they taught me and showed me, and like, they never went to New York. So I'm like kind of breaking into that, like, that they didn't do that. Does that make sense? It's like, it's
Yeah,
yeah.
Totally does. So it's more of like a building. Like weirdly, it's you're still the one that's like, I'm gonna go to the big city.
I'm gonna go to the big city, baby. Yeah. Yeah. And like the concept of doing stand-up to them was like, what the fuck? That's crazy. That's even crazier than what we do, you know? So yeah. Yeah.
Totally. Speaking of moving to the big city, you are moving your show to the
Yes.
Edinburgh Fringe Festival.
Yes. I am. I'm crazy.
At the end, thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you. So how did you get involved in the Fringe Festival? When was the decision of like time to go Fringe? That makes it sound like a haircut. I apologize.
Yeah, no, you're like, honestly, it's kind of I mean, as I do most things, it was fast and like always it was fast and not thought out. But I've always wanted to go to the Fringe. I worship Phoebe Waller-Bridge, Fleabag, all that good stuff. And so it's been a lot, since college. I've been like, I would just like go on the website and be like, look at my hair. I would just go on the website and be like, how do you do this? I was like 18, like, how do you send a show to Fringe? So it's something I've always wanted to do. And then this year, I had seen with social media and everything, like you can kind of take notes on what other people are doing. And I've seen a lot of comics take their stuff to the Fringe. So I knew it was like possible. You didn't have to be like an established person necessarily. And it all just it just happened really fast. Call it a manic episode, call it ambition. I don't know, but I just started looking into it. And the more I looked into it, and it's still going, it's still like, oh, okay, I think I can do that. Oh, okay, I think I can do that. The thing about Fringe is that anyone can do Fringe. It's not like you audition, you don't submit, you don't like, it is an open access festival. But the flip side of that is that it is all you. So you have to find the venue, and you have to raise the money, and you have to find the accommodation, and you have to do the marketing. And then when you get to the Fringe, you have to go out on the street and get people to come see your show. And you're competing against like 3,000 different shows. And a lot of them are exactly what I'm doing, not exactly, but
Yeah.
a lot of people coming and bringing their solo work. And you're also competing against, the Phoebe Waller-Bridges of the world, like people so it's very overwhelming, extremely daunting. Everyone told me it's an extremely daunting experience. And I said, I'm on it. And, and just as I started I learned, I was going to all these Zoom info sessions and like emailing people in Scotland and being like, how does this work? I was like, I think all of the practice I've had marketing myself, promoting myself in New York I just really have a fuck it attitude of, yeah, let's just do it. So that happened. It's been a step-by-step process. And I'm definitely at the point right now where I'm like, what the hell am I doing? But I'm also really thrilled. It's like a dream come true. And like, if I can really pull this off, which it's looking like I might, because it is happening, that'll be like I think that'll be a big thing for me personally, just like confidence wise, like, okay, you really did this, you took this thing. And yeah.
Totally. And you mentioned fundraising for the show. Is there somewhere that listeners of this interview can?
Well, yes, there is. Can I give it to you? Can I like send you a link or something?
You absolutely can. And that link will be in the description of this video.
Fantastic. Please
It'll
help
be
me.
great.
It's so much money. I had no y'all, it's so expensive to do anything. Yeah, it's great. Please help. I'm taking my dad with me as my roadie, which is very sweet. So please donate to me and my 70-year-old father's trip to Scotland, please. Thank you.
Yes, please donate. Make it happen.
Please, I don't know how we're eating, but it'll be fine. It'll be fine.
It'll be great. Did you, when your dad was doing show, like when you were growing up and your parents were kind of moving around to these regional theaters for shows, did you go with them a lot? Were you kind of like a theater version of an army brat? Or
100%. No one's ever described it that way, but that's exactly what it was. Yes. Yes, we spent mostly every summer at a theater. So that, like, instead of going to summer camp, we'd go to the theater festivals. So I became like very immersed in that world. I was like a little mascot for those places, which was great because I got like this huge community of older actors who are still like in my life and like almost as close as family at this point, so that was cool, is that they kind of provided me that like community, because I didn't really
totally.
get much at school because I was a big weirdo. So I was going away for the summer and like finding my people, and that was definitely a big part of pursuing it, I think.
That's amazing. And so now your dad's coming as your roadie, which is
You're
great.
right. Yes, he's coming as my roadie. It's gonna be so weird and wonderful. I can't wait. It's gonna be great because no matter what, like even if no one comes to the show, it completely falls on its face. I will, which I don't think will happen. But
I doubt.
yeah, but if that were to happen, like I get a really amazing experience with my dad, like once in a lifetime, so that's really cool.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I know you were talking a lot about having to market the shows yourself and how much of that's on you, but how marketing these shows in New York and also just branding as a stand-up comedian so that like people are like, oh yeah, Emily, of course, like I know what I'm going to get when I get her.
Yeah.
You went through undergrad and graduate school for acting. So I'm just curious, how did they try to brand you?
Oh, Carly. Let's see. Well, when I was in college, I played a lot of mothers very young. I was
Helpful. Good.
super helpful. Yeah, it took a long time actually for people to let me fall in love on stage. I was one of those. Like I was always playing, moms. At like 18. My first role in college was I played the 99-year-old drunk grandma in The Cripple of Inishmaan. I was 18 years old and I was like, okay, but like, could I play Juliet? You know what I mean? So yeah, I think I was put in that box, whatever that box is, young, and also like, you're pretty quirky, and that's kind of how I was branded. And I felt like in institutions like undergrad, grad school, it usually took towards the end of my experience for people to realize what I was capable of, and that was always really frustrating to me, because it was just a lot of me being like, put me in, and then being like, then I think you're tall, so you should go over there, and so yeah, I think undergrad especially kind of fucked my shit up, and I had to rebuild a lot of confidence from that, which I think is not a unique experience. I think a lot of especially young women have that experience of going to college and you're ready to take on the world, and they're like, okay, we're gonna put you in a bald cap and you're gonna be the funny little guy in the corner. You're gonna be the little page boy over there, and that's tough. You kind of have to rebuild how I think I really saw myself in a very weird, not so healthy way for a long time.
Totally. And I think I think there are good and bad things with theater education. I did it too, for the record. I think we've established that, but just so people aren't just like, I'm sitting here, I did math, but theater seems weird. Like
Yeah. If you did math, I'm amazed by you. I wish I could have.
yeah, yeah, hard pass. But I do think it's so interesting because I do think there are a lot of merits in the way that they're like, okay, it has to be like a lot of introspection and things, but there are so many kind of damaging and box putting things, putting you into a box things. And sometimes it's the wrong box because it's like they don't ask you to build the box. They're like, here's your box. And you're like, but I thought.
Yes. And they're also like, here's the box, and it's the same box we've been using since 1950, and we're not updating
Yes.
it. And it's like, wait a second.
Hold on. So do you feel like your comedy or these things, like how much of that box do you think was right? What's wrong? How much of it is you shattering the box and being like, this box is stupid? You know, like where does the box come into play at all? Either as something you've like used for kindling in the fire to like warm you while you do everything else, or like
yeah. Oh my God. I love this box metaphor. Yes. And you know, I took a lot of value from my theater education, and yeah, a lot of it was like very crucial for me and like becoming who I am, especially my grad school education. But I also, there's definitely a big part of me that's like burned down the institution, and there's a lot of like there's a lot of anger there, I think, which is definitely because I myself and probably everyone who's gone through theatrical training has been really hurt by something or someone, or you know, things that old white men have told them and, you know, have stuck in their brain and they've never forgotten. And so I think that definitely keeps the fire going. There's definitely an element of, well, I'll show you what I can do, you know. And that's you don't want to get too far in that because you don't want to become, you know, bitter, but I think that it helps to kind of keep you chugging along. I also think, and this is different now, because I think people are realizing that academic institutions are like, you know, especially theater ones, are just ripe with abuse and a lot of bad stuff. But you know, when I was going to school, like people weren't making their own shit. That wasn't really like a thing that we were taught to do. It was, you know, this is, you're going to wear the jewel tone dress and you're going to go to the audition and you're going to wear the heels and you're going to sing the song. And it wasn't really about, you know, highlighting what made you, you. And I think that is changing. I think people are much more interested in seeing interesting people than cookie cutter, you know.
Totally. Oh, I so agree. Well, we are running down on time, but before you go, I have one last question. That I like asking all the people. What is something that you wish you could talk about more? Like you wish people asked you about more, but like it just doesn't really come up. Like what's like that?
Oh my God. Does it have to be like deep, or can it
No,
be funny?
it can be literally anything.
Okay, great. Well, then I would have to say Animal Crossing. Very passionate about it. Passionate about Animal Crossing, the video game. It's one of my special interests, and I love playing it. I love talking about it. And I wish more people asked me about it because yeah, it's my church. I love playing Animal Crossing. I just love video games. I love that stuff. So I wish more people talk to me about that.
Why do you say Animal Crossing is your church?
I say Animal Crossing is my church because I go there every weekend onto my little island, and I play with my little animals. If you're, you know, people know what that is. And it's really therapeutic and it's really nice. And I love the little animals and how nice they are and how wholesome it is. It's just like a really good escape that doesn't make you feel bad about the world like most escapes do. So
That's true.
my
So
favorite
he's more
animal is Pietro, if you're wondering.
he's Pedro.
Pietro, he's a clown.
Pietro.
He's a sheep who dresses like a clown. He inspires me. He inspires me.
That tracks so hard.
Yeah,
So like with Animal Crossing, so I take it, are you more of a, is it really, because you mentioned other video games, is it like Animal Crossing? And it's
Mhm.
like, oh yeah, I'll check out some other ones. Or has it been like other video games? And you're like, oh my God, I have found Animal Crossing.
No, I'm new to the video game world. I've only been playing for about probably the last 5 years or so.
Nice.
I dabble in all of them, but Animal Crossing is my home. Animal Crossing is my guiding, is my North Star. You know what I mean? It's like Sims, but nice. I don't know. You gotta just play it. Have you played it? You gotta play it.
I have not played it. I feel like I need to.
Girl, you will love it. It'll make you feel so good.
I will. Animal Crossing, take me to church.
Animal Animal Crossing is my church. That's all the only quote you need, I think, from this.
That's the only one. We're gonna cut everything else out.
Just take that.
But yeah, it's been amazing talking to you. Is there anything else you want to promote, social media shows, anything?
Yeah, please follow me on the Instagram, Emily Fury Daly. Hee hee. You can follow me on that and TikTok. But like I'm trying to get people interested so that when I go to Scotland, maybe there's someone there who knows and likes me. So follow me and yeah, donate. And that's it.
Yay! Yes, and so everyone donate to Furious, and thank you so much, Emily.
Carly, thank you so much. It's actors, we love nothing more than talking about ourselves, and we just don't get to nearly enough. So thank you so much. I really mean that
Hey, happy to help.
so much.